We have a massive Lakers free agency update to go over today as an NBA insider has just dropped a bombshell report on the future of one particular player that changes everything for the outlook of this team. But not only that, there is now a new name that has entered discussions that has huge implications going forward, folks. Before we get into it all, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, you guys have been absolute beasts with the support. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you guys again for your continued support over here. As again, if you're part of the 80 to 90% who aren't subscribed to the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Folks, a lot to go over today. Obviously, the full priority right now has been for the Lakers on now that the draft is over on a center. We know Rob Pelinka came out recently and said that they're looking to get a center. They also want a point of attack defender. And most of us just kind of assumed that the Lakers were going to retain and bring back Dorian Finney-Smith. And according to a multitude of reports, including one from Dave McMenamin that just dropped, that is not as surefire of a thing as many of us hoped or at least thought. Now, let's start with this report here. And again, it's all from Dave McMenamin's article here. And it says a look at the Lakers' options when it comes to offseason upgrades as we start a free agency rather and approach start of free agency. So you can see this tweet here. A lot of smoke about DFS leaving, not looking good at all. And the full quote here is this: but his departure of DFS would allow LA to open up the full MLE of $14.1 million, which could be split up to pursue multiple free agents seeking a premium contract above the veteran minimum. And if the Lakers didn't use all the MLE, they could take on more salary in a trade and absorb the extra money into whatever they have left of the MLE. So essentially, they could. I mean, again, I haven't covered it as much here on the channel, but there's been reports over the past week or two that Dorian Finney-Smith has a lot of options from a lot of other suitors, and that a lot of teams right now are lining up at the door to get a chance, to steal from Rob Pelinka at Dorian Finney-Smith. And I don't think that's something that the Lakers necessarily envisioned at the start of this offseason, was having to worry necessarily about specifically Dorian Finney-Smith and his future in LA. I think most people, again, you gave up second round picks for him. I think most people just thought he was going to return. Not necessarily the case here. And this is, again, Dave McMenamin. He dropped a bunch of updates. We also have, some interesting, comments from obviously, Austin Reaves and LeBron here, which we'll dive into later. But it's just a lot of interesting things going on, right? And you can see this here. My immediate thought is if DFS opts out, is it the full MLE and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and then sign and trade for one of the centers. But yeah, it seems like a lot more of the ambitious Laker offseason projections are growing less likely, which again, I don't know how much of that is necessarily true. Of course, they have a lot of options and decisions to make regarding the trade market for centers, whether that's a guy like Walker Kessler or some other players as well. But at the end of the day, we'll dive into Nickeil Alexander-Walker in a minute as a replacement for Dorian Finney-Smith. However, you can see this here. Forward Dorian Finney-Smith, who underwent surgery on his left ankle after the season, has until Sunday to opt out of the final year of his contract worth $15.4 million. He is extension eligible before free agency begins on Monday. So he can essentially, it's a player option, so he can opt out if he wants, and then reports have started to really swirl surrounding Dorian Finney-Smith getting a lot of offers. I mean, there are a lot of teams out there that could use what Dorian Finney-Smith brings. And he was coming off of an injury. Again, so, all these different things, surgery on his left ankle. He didn't look great for the Lakers once, they traded from him from Brooklyn. He didn't look like the Dorian Finney-Smith that we saw in previous years with the Mavericks and, of course, in time with the Brooklyn even this year. But one of the other factors here is that, he is friends by all accounts with Luka. He's played with Luka in the past, and there's a lot of interesting ways that he affects the team if he leaves. They're immediately out of a point of attack defender. And assuming that he was hurt last year, assuming what, you can kind of project what he's going to bring this upcoming year, it becomes then very, very interesting. And there is just a lot of smoke about him leaving. And that's a little bit scary because, again, he's a very, very talented player and one that he's pretty difficult to come by as it pertains to the skills that he brings. And of course, the Lakers are in a unique spot where they need a lot of what he actually brings, which is the unfortunate reality here. I mean, you look at their depth chart without Dorian Finney-Smith, who's penciled in at their starting center right now. I mean, then you wouldn't entertain, I assume, Hachimura in many of these trade talks because you need some wings, right? And you look at his stats even last year, 7.9 points a game. The Lakers still shot 40% from three. I assume that they were going to be in any trade, moving off of Rui Hachimura if it became an option. And, a trade for Andrew Wiggins, it's still possible. There's a lot of rumblings about a lot of different trades right now. And, of course, we'll keep you up to date with them. But there's just a lot of news happening surrounding these guys. And it'd be interesting if he decides to opt out of his player option and leave and pursue other avenues, which would make sense if he's getting offered a ton of cash. And let's look at who could be replacing the man himself, and that is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So if Dorian Finney-Smith leaves, according to Dave McMenamin, it could open up the full MLE, potentially getting someone like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but the Lakers would lose 3 seconds for 3 months of Dorian Finney-Smith. And of course, the trade at the time was viewed as very good. They also went ahead and got Luka Doncic after that trade. I mean, everything looked even better at that point, and getting him for seconds. I mean, you had the Magic the other day trade up for the 32nd pick in the draft from, I believe it was the Celtics or whoever it was, and they give up 2 second-round picks in order to additional second-round picks in order to move up in the spot. Like, seconds aren't necessarily super, like, they've been pretty more valuable, at least lately, compared to previous years. And for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, it now becomes a very interesting premise because he is a very good role player, and I think he would fit very well with this Lakers team. And at the end of the day, this Lakers team needs is swapping Dorian Finney-Smith for Nickeil Alexander-Walker a great option? No, I don't think so. We saw in the playoffs. I mean, he is a very hit or miss player. Of course, they played him in the playoffs. He didn't look great. Shooting can struggle at times. He's a very good though point of attack defender, a good two guard, can play the point guard in a pinch and things like that. But do the Lakers need a guy like that? Like, the answer is yes, they do. And there was a lot of rumblings about the Lakers pursuing, Nickeil Alexander-Walker before some things happened. I don't know if getting rid of Dorian Finney-Smith and then replacing him with obviously a different position is necessarily the play. They still need a big wing. I think what Dorian Finney-Smith brings to this team is pretty invaluable, especially just with the experience alongside Luka. And he's just a reliable starter in this league. And again, you look at some of his stats here. Yes, he had a bit of a drop off with the Lakers, but his role also, vastly decreased. You're coming from a Brooklyn Nets team that doesn't have many scorers. You have Cam Johnson, you have Cam Thomas. You don't have many other scorers over there. Now for the Lakers, they had an abundance, especially after the acquisition of Luka Doncic. So let me know down below what your thoughts are. Are you worried about, of course, him leaving? Do you want him to go, or do you think that a swap for him for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, which is a bit of a funny thing because I mean, it would make sense if they let him, like, if he decides to leave to another team, sure, replace him with a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, but then you're basically giving up your 3 seconds for nothing. And you can't, go into the sunk cost fallacy here and just start to think about how much you could lose, because if he's going to leave, he's going to leave. You make the next move. But at the end of the day, let me know down below what your thoughts are on that. It's a very fluid situation here. And again, throw the full MLE at Nickeil Alexander-Walker and then sign and trade for a center. That seems like a decent scenario. And whether that's a sign and trade for, I mean, there's a lot of different centers that are available. Who knows who will actually become within the, fully available, whether that's Walker Kessler, Nick Claxton, who's still, according to some reporters on the Lakers radar, according to other reporters, isn't. It's going to be interesting there. But a couple other things here before we wrap up as well is from Dave McMenamin as well. LeBron James, basically his future rather, hasn't made clear. And a source familiar with James thinking told ESPN that at this point, James is not entering next season with any certainty that it will be his last. So it seems like he's around to stay. He's obviously been commenting on the Mind the Game podcast and things like that, saying he wants to play with Bryce. When Bryce comes into the NBA, maybe he'll probably stay for a couple more years. So I would assume LeBron has at least 2 or 3 years left. He's going to opt into that player option, so he's not going to give the Lakers a discount. And we kind of knew that, and I've been assuming the Lakers have known that. They're going to operate under the assumption that he is opting into his player option, and then you make the moves around there. And they're very motivated, Reaves as well here, to get another contract done, which I have another video coming up on. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know down below what your thoughts are on this. Finney-Smith seems to be on the way out. Very interesting. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.